And welcome edition of the Hustle Show podcast. Here for this Hustle Show on Monday, December 4th. I am Mark Zinno, joined as always by a man whose betting record is undoubtedly immaculate after last week and a 5-0 Saturday, a 5-0 Sunday. That you add that together, that's a perfect 10-0, and he is a perfect 10. He is Brian Power joining us here on the Hustle Show. Follow him on Twitter at Brian Power _wins, on Instagram at Brian Power WT. BP, you are a god.
Well, my goodness. I mean, your introductions every Monday, Zinno, are always some of my favorites, and this may have topped the list. And I will add to everything you said, I also went 2-0 in college basketball on Friday, so that's 12-0 over the last 3 days if you want to keep
But
going
that
back.
doesn't. I mean, never hurts. But the Brian Power does. Forget the Power Five. The
Yeah,
Brian Power does. That's all it is. It's
yeah.
just get one more win tonight. We got a baker's dozen over the last 3 days. So listen, I'm a happy guy. But it was an incredible weekend for you. Good weekend for me as well. And we are on to Monday Night Football. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Let's not bury the lead here. We got to hang out over the weekend in Boston,
We
man,
did.
with CT
I mean,
and Trig and Guns. It was it. And
yep.
somebody brought this up on Twitter. I had not had a perfect weekend like that since when? Since my birthday weekend in Vegas when we all hung out there. So
I mean,
I guess we're gonna have to hang out more often. Next time I have a
we
really
probably
really big
should.
bet, I know where I'm going, buddy. Hanging out with you.
Yes. We have to wait for us to get together. The syndicate, as we like to call it, seems to do very well on weekends, and we all did very well as we were up in Boston near CT's home of record there, and had a great weekend at the Encore. So, for all those who followed along on social media and came out in support of Viva Seltzer, we certainly appreciate all that as well. All right, we got Monday Night Football here between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the artist formerly known as the Cincinnati Bengals, who are now starting Jake Browning at quarterback. We know they're not very good, but in the big picture here, Brian Power, Cincinnati Bengals only have one win on the road on Monday Night Football in their team history. Is that's the actual stat, right? Like you can say that out loud. Is that since when? What is when was the last time they had a win on Monday Night Football?
I think. Well, when the last time I don't know. I think they have
One
just
in
one on the
25.
road
Here it
since.
is. One in
Go ahead. Go ahead if
25
you've got.
in road night games since 2000. Their last primetime road victory came against the Eagles in 2012. So I misspoke. One
That was a
primetime
long
road
time
victory.
ago.
Yes.
Long time ago. Yeah. So look, in terms of the side earlier in the week, and by early I mean like Wednesday-ish or something, I was figuring the Jags would make a nice teaser piece, maybe with
Mhm.
something I was gonna
Yeah.
like next week. But that option is now gone. And laying 10, as you know, Mark, not really my style in the NFL. So I'm just gonna pass on the side. You mentioned the trend with the Bengals. This is not a team I'm looking to back right now, even though Jacksonville, I look at their record. They're obviously in contention for the best record in the AFC. Is Jacksonville the best team in the AFC? Absolutely not. But you look at the total. We all know about primetime unders. And just to clarify, it's Sunday and Monday when the under hits. Thursday, obviously we saw Dallas and Seattle. They didn't even punt, and that game went way over. But the primetime under trend, it's been predominantly Sunday nights and Monday nights. But I'm scared to back that here too, because this Bengals defense reeks. They just gave up 400 yards to the Kenny Pickett-led Steelers last week. I mean, do you know how bad you have to be to give up 400 yards to the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, a team that lost to the Arizona Cardinals yesterday? What a great Sunday it was, by the way, because the Pennsylvania NFL teams go 0-2. Okay, you mentioned
Love it.
CT. You had to leave for that Eagles-Niners game. I'll tell you what, I don't know who was louder for that game, the 80,000 or whatever in the stadium, the screaming Eagles fans, or me and CT cheering for the Niners. And I do know who won, though. It was CT and I.
Yes.
But anyway,
You both
let's
are
go to the
happier than the 80,000.
Yes, yeah. So, all right, we've established the Bengals aren't very good anymore. They don't win on the road in prime time, and their defense can't be trusted for a prime time under. So let's go to the prop market like we always do here on Monday. And I'm going to go in an interesting direction and look at Bengals running back Joe Mixon in two different ways. Now, based on what we saw last week, Zinno, when the Bengals played the Steelers, since he can't rely on Jake Browning's arm. So they're probably going to try to feed the ball to Mixon, certainly early in the game. Now, there is an issue. The Bengals aren't very good at running the ball. And the Jags defense is actually number one in DVOA against the run this season. So what do? We're going to look at rushing attempts for Mixon, not rushing yards. Okay. I don't care if he just gains 1 yard per carry every time. Okay. Now, eventually, maybe they'll stop handing him the ball if that happens. But I think Mixon goes over his rush attempts. It's juiced Minus 125 to the over, 13.5 at DraftKings. 7 of the last 9 games, Mixon's had at least 14 rushing attempts. Now, last week was the low water mark at 8. Okay, that's way low. So just to cover our tracks a little bit, we're also going to look Mixon over his receiving yardage total of 19.5, which looks really low because not only has he gone over this number 5 of the last 6 weeks, but he had a season high 44 yards last week. You talk about Browning maybe not being so effective in the passing game. Well, how do you get him going? How about some short conservative throws to the running back? And that's what we saw last week when Mixon's rushing attempts decreased, but his receiving yard total increased. Plus, you want to talk about game script. We always do that every week here on the show, Mark. We said last week, if the Bears were trailing, it might help DJ Moore's receiving yardage prop. And that hit. And it hit late because they needed to throw to win the game. Cincy, they're probably going to be behind here, right? And that means throwing the ball late, 19.5 yards just isn't very much. So we're going to go dual threat here with Joe Mixon, Zinno. Over receiving, 19.5 receiving yards, over 13.5 rushing attempts. That's what I got to say about Monday Night Football, Bengals and Jaguars.
And reminder to the audience, you and I, since we've been doing this now, 7 straight weeks, at least one of us, if not both of us, has provided the WagerTalk audience with a winning prop on Monday Night Football. So it's the right place for you guys to be. Again, make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button on the WagerTalk YouTube channel right here for the Hustle Show pod, as you guys see it every single day. Full edition of the show every single Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I am also going to look into the running back market here for a prop, except I'm going to the other team and the other running back in Travis Etienne. Now, start this off by saying the Bengals have the second worst run defense in the league, allowing nearly 140 yards per game on the ground. So Travis Etienne is a player that we're going to key on here. But this is also a Bengals team, that may find themselves in situations where they're trailing and it might not be advantageous for them to try and stack the box. But this is a situation where the Jaguars offense and Doug Peterson here will rely on Etienne, especially early in this game. We're not going to look to his rushing yards. We're going to look to his rushing attempts, which is set at just 15.5 here for this game. Now, Etienne is averaging 17.6 attempts per game on the season. The Bengals are a team right now that's allowing 21 rushing attempts to opposing running backs on the year. I think the game script here says for Jacksonville to run the ball early. I think the game script here says that they want to get Etienne involved early. It's a bad run defense. If they can do that and grind this team down, they're going to set up a lot of very good passing situations to a defense that's very good. It's average against the pass, but they have some metrics that put the Bengals up pretty high in certain categories. They're very good at quarterback knockdown rate, best in the NFL, and they also are fourth in actual quarterback knockdowns as far as the raw number is concerned. So it would benefit the Jaguars here to just run this ball into the ground, feeding into the primetime under, feeding into a lower scoring game here as we see where the total is in this game. So I'm going to look to Travis Etienne over 15.5 rushing attempts tonight. He's only not got to 15 4 times this year. 2 of them he landed on 14. The other one was the blowout loss to the 49ers where they had no reason to run the ball when they were getting smoked. And the other game was against the Kansas City Chiefs back in week 2 where he only had 12. Again, when you see that step up in class from the Jaguars, you can start to see their offensive game plan shift a little bit. I think this is a downgrade in talent, a downgrade in class for the team that they're facing here. I think Etienne should be featured pretty heavily tonight early on, both in the run game and in the pass game. So we're going to go Travis Etienne over 15.5 rushing attempts for my prop tonight.
Yeah, I like it, Zinno. And you talk about establishing the run, Jacksonville establishing the run early. Well, if he's getting a lot of attempts, Etienne early, you figure he's going to seal the deal late because if Cincinnati's down in this game, Jacksonville might just look to take the air out of the football in the second half. I mean, you're talking about playing a team with Jake Browning at quarterback, so you're probably going to have a lead. And yeah, I like it. Interesting. We're both going to the attempts, the rushing attempts, Mark. And I think this is, you mentioned the prop streak we have. I think that's new for us.
The other part of this ETN handicap here is that the Jaguars as a team are not a very good running team. They're only averaging, they're not averaging a ton of yards on the ground per game. Like they're good, but they're not like over the top, run like the Ravens kind of good. So this isn't a team that averages just 106 yards a game on the ground. So I'm a little bit nervous from a yardage standpoint, just because ETN is such a versatile back. He'll be used in the passing game as well. I think that's the kind of back you look at that says, I want touches, not necessarily carries. Put the ball in his hand and let him do what he's going to do. And on my page tonight over at sportsmemo.sm.buzz/MZ, I do have another prop up that involves Travis Etienne. So go there, check it out, get my play for tonight, along with a play in the NBA. Again, sm.buzz/MZ is the place to go, as we are on quite the run since the middle of November here in the NFL, BP. I'm over 69% on plays in the NFL. So trying to stay hot in that category. I want to remind everybody as well, you saw the graphic earlier, $199 special here over at WagerTalk for the rest of the year, special year-end sports extravaganza. You see it right there, $199. Access to your favorite handicapper through December 31st. And again, this offer goes through December 11th at midnight. So no coupon needed, $199, the year-end sports extravaganza over at WagerTalk and WagerTalk.com. All right, let's switch gears here and finish up with the college football playoff. Now that we know the teams, now that we know who's involved in all this, we get to look at some spreads here and figure out what the college football playoff is going to look like in the semifinals. Obviously, we have Michigan going up against Alabama. And then, of course, Texas and Washington squaring off. Here, we'll start with Alabama and Michigan. A short number here. Michigan opened up as a 2.5-point favorite, down to 1.5 here in a total of 46.5 in that range. I was kind of surprised to see the number this short. I thought maybe it would be over a field goal when they opened it up here. But there's a lot of public love that's going to come to Alabama, given how much they just beat the best team in the nation. I know you and I think that Michigan was probably slightly better than Georgia from a power rating standpoint. So this line does make sense. I just thought from a 3.5 standpoint, it would have been more of what odds makers would like to see where the money goes. And if it goes down, then you obviously sit on that key number 3. And when you have two good teams like this, we know that key numbers in college don't necessarily reign the way they do in the NFL, but with two very good teams like this, they sort of pop up a little more, BP. All right. We had Brian. We lost him. We're going to keep going here, though. So we will look to Michigan and Alabama. The other game here, let me just get that out here so we can get Brian back. Texas, a 4.5-point favorite over Washington. Now, if you followed me or Brian Power for that matter, I faded Washington pretty much for the last, 7 or 8 weeks as they have played a single-digit game against every opponent as far as the score differential since they played Cal on September 23rd, which is insane. They haven't won a game by more than 10 points since September 23rd, and yet they've been favored by big numbers all along the way, save the Oregon game, save, this Oregon game that they just lost the other day, or that Oregon lost the other day. But they've been putting up some pretty hefty numbers and have not been able to cover them here. So, but this is a game here that I'm going to look towards the total. I think that number feels short with both of these offenses, and the numbers actually come down a little bit. Washington's defense has kind of impressed me a little bit down the stretch, even though it's been a little bit susceptible. But Texas looks so good against Oklahoma State. And so you have to figure out really what you think of comparatively those defenses and how close they are. And Texas's offense, again, is one that really can't be stopped at this point in time. They've proven that they can hang with any defense in the country. So I think the number is right at 4.5. And I certainly believe that this game is going to be close. I would lean Texas. There's a lot of work we got to do, and we're going to have to see a lot of where the money goes as the weeks go along here. But the early money coming in should be pretty telling about what people think of this contest here. And do we have Brian Power back yet or no? He is back. There he is. Look at him. I got nervous for a second. I know you'd never leave me, Brian Power. I know you'd never leave me.
No, I did. I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I apologize.
It's okay. Let's get back to Michigan and Alabama here as we break down the semifinals of the college football playoff. 1.5-point spread here. Kind of just give me a quick breakdown on the game itself.
Yeah. So I talked about this as in my initial reaction, as you know, is that this line is too short. SEC championship game, Georgia got as high as -6 against Alabama. That's bad. Alabama wins the game outright. But as you said, I believe Michigan than Georgia. So you look at these two spreads, okay? Michigan -1.5 versus Alabama. Georgia was up as high as -6. I have Michigan better than Georgia. It's tough for me to reconcile that, gang. And we have to look at the public perception. The public perception on Alabama going into the Georgia game was too low, okay? Because they were coming off the close call in the Iron Bowl. They needed the miracle on 4th and 30 or whatever. Georgia was rolling. So people were kind of writing off Bama. Now, Alabama beats Georgia. Okay, Michigan has a ho-hum win over Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. And I think, ESPN.com, I talked about this on Wager Talk today. They have a headline up right now. Alabama opens as a rare underdog. Well, they were an underdog last week, an even bigger underdog. So I think Teddy asked an interesting question, and I would like to hear your response to this. Where do we think the money is going now? Because the initial move, we've seen the line come down a bit. Do we think this gets closer to a pick? And then maybe there's some buyback on Michigan. That's what I think. I don't think I think right now the public, a buddy of mine, I'm not going to name him because I don't want to embarrass him or whatever. He's not in the industry. Just a buddy of mine who likes sports. He's like, oh, I think Bama's going to, roll Michigan. And he, like, whenever he texts me, I always feel like it's very representative of what the public at large feels. And I think that's what they think. And again, I think Michigan's a better team than Georgia. They give up 9.5 points per game. Yes, it's in the moribund Big Ten, but Michigan can they can slow down Alabama's offense. And this is a team, Michigan, that this is the best iteration we've seen them under Harbaugh. Okay. And they are motivated because they've lost in the semifinal each of the last 2 years. Meanwhile, I think this is actually one of the weakest Alabama teams under Saban
Yeah.
because they're always in the discussion for number one, and no one considers them the best team this year.
Well, and congratulations to the WagerTalk listeners who just cashed a plus 275 ticket on the word moribund being used in this show by Brian Power. So that was unexpected to say the least. But I tend to agree with you. Look, in some of this, BP, I talk about this a lot. Some of this is narrative based, right? And the two prevailing narratives here is that, oh, Bama is back and Bama's really good. And this is the Bama we always knew that would be. And it's not. And the other narrative is Michigan always chokes. Harbaugh never wins the big one, right? He finally got over it, but he's not going to win. You didn't win last year against TCU. These are narratives that the public buys into and bets off of, not really looking at numbers, power ratings, and things that actually matter here. So I think you're right and you're accurate in that sense that this Alabama team, them beating Georgia, may have been a little bit more representative of the fact that Georgia was not as good as we thought they were. Go back and all season long, I kept telling people Georgia was going to lose a game for the SEC championship game. I didn't think they were as strong as they were in years past. They certainly weren't as strong as last year or any of the two previous teams that won the national title. But this is what happens when you play a cupcake schedule and you have to step up in class against a team that's equal to you. Remember, Georgia trailed South Carolina at home at the break. They almost lost to Auburn. They almost lost to Missouri. And they finally got by a team that was at the same level as them. And that, I think, is more representative of Georgia not being as good as we power rated them and thought they were, necessarily, than Alabama being able to hang with a team like the regular Georgia or this Michigan team. So I agree with you in that aspect that there is the narratives are going to override here. I think the public will continue to hit Bama, and this thing may get closer to a pick than anything else when it's all said and done. Now, again, with a short number like this, the spread might not even matter. And if you wanted to bet it now and you got a 1.5, just take Michigan on the money line, right? Like, why even mess around with it and let the 1.5 hang out there? Pay the extra, 10 cents, whatever it may be, 15 cents, and just jump on Michigan on the money line. But I would tell you too, again, I don't think this thing trends towards 3. If we get up towards 3, it would be rather surprising, especially given where the early money has come. Now, again, we got 3 full weeks before we play this game. So you're going to see this. This is what happens every year with the college football playoff, right? The lines get posted. You see this initial movement that goes along for the first 3 or 4 days. Then it'll die down for 2 weeks, right? And then you'll start to see as the week of the game leading up, right from Christmas on, you'll start to see money coming back in on where people are, because some pro bettors will wait till the market settles and see where it goes and make a decision from there.
Yeah, and to that point, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what we saw with Ohio State and Georgia last year, right? The public was all on Georgia, and then the Sharps came in late, hammered Ohio State in that game. You talk about Georgia not being as good as we thought they were in some of the close calls. Let's go back, to the game, the matter at hand, okay, with Alabama. Alabama trailed Tennessee at the half. They trailed A&M at the half. They trailed Ole Miss at the half. Only beat Arkansas by 3. Neck and neck with LSU before Daniels got hurt. So,
they only scored 17 points against South Florida.
Yeah, and that was, you could maybe argue that was a different team. They were still trying to figure out with Milroe, but they've got a great ATS record, Alabama, and they've been a great second half team. But you can only, as we saw with the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday, okay, you can only climb out of a hole so many times. And Michigan is a great team at burying you once you get in a hole with the way they play football, old school, running the ball again, running the ball 30 straight times, and just never letting you have it.
Alabama's path to victory is very simple. they have got to hit big plays in the pass game. That's the only way Jalen Milroe is really effective, is throwing the ball down the field. We saw it against Georgia. They took non shots deep. They got some pass interference calls. They created some extra field position that way. That's what Michigan is going to have to contend with. And you have to go into this game knowing, betting Michigan, that you might be on the wrong side of some ticky tack PI calls, right? That are going to extend drives and things of that nature. You just have to learn to live with it.
Well, Monfrere, excuse me here, because I got something on that. Okay. If you want to talk about an X factor, I brought this up again on WagerTalk today this morning. Michigan, fewest number of penalty yards per game in the country this season. Okay. Alabama, not nearly as bad as, remember, like last season, they were one of the most penalized teams in the entire country.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this year, even though while Alabama's cut that number down, still double the number of penalty yards per game as Michigan. So unless if it's just uncharacteristic mistakes by the secondary from Michigan, I think they might be okay. And I do agree with you, though. Alabama's offense has been very boom or bust with Milroe. Obviously, the play against Auburn says it all. But to me, you look at the stats. If the Zebras are getting involved here in the semifinal, it might be Alabama that's adversely affected.
Going to be interesting to see, the say the least. Right on to the other semifinal between Texas and Washington. Longhorns laying 4.5. You and I weren't surprised by this line. Washington, by our power ratings, is the weakest of the 4 teams in the field. In fact, I would argue they're the weakest of the 6 teams if you add in Georgia and Ohio State. You have to take out Florida State, obviously, without the quarterback changes the line altogether. But I would even think that they might be a short favorite against a Jordan Travis Seminoles team, maybe, if that. But that game might be a 1 or 2 point spread. You don't think so either?
No,
yeah, I mean,
no. If Jordan Travis was playing, Florida State's favorite over Washington. Washington is not a top 10 team in the country.
The point is that they are a team that continues probably to be a little bit overrated. You and I felt that. I just mentioned a moment ago that they hadn't won a game by double digits since beating Cal back on September 23rd, yet they continue to lay these double-digit spreads throughout the rest of the year, save the Oregon game twice. Nonetheless here, Texas and the offense, can Washington's defense slow them down? I believe Texas's defense is good enough to contain Washington. I don't know. I'd have to do the look, and I don't know if you've done this yet, on where they are versus Oregon, right? What's Texas' defense look like versus Oregon? And how close are they to Oregon? Because Oregon's defense is was very good. They just, they did that choke thing that Oregon likes to do at times, and hard to explain.
Yeah, so this is tough. Texas is definitely the better team, okay? But like, part of me doesn't want to and I didn't play the Pac-12 championship game. Okay, I didn't give out a play to those to my clients. I did a video saying maybe take a look at Washington under its team total. That was not correct, but I'm not convinced yet that laying, and this is, I handicap like this a little bit. Part of me doesn't want to lay points against Washington because I feel they're due to lose close, right? Washington, now we know how the TCU run ended last year, but Washington reminds me a lot of TCU last year when it went bad for TCU in the national championship game against Georgia. It went very bad. They didn't lose close. They lost by, 3,000 points. And I don't think that would happen here. I don't think it would be a Georgia TCU situation with Texas and Washington. But I am a little leery because, again, a lot of recreational. You saw this on Twitter, right? Oh, my God, what a terrible spread that was for the Pac-12 championship game. How could the odds makers make undefeated Washington a 9-point dog or 9.5-point dog, when they'd won the first game outright, and then they just beat them outright again? I don't know. Maybe we'll have to go back and look through it, rewatch it, that Washington just matches up well with Oregon. But I like this Texas team quite a bit. I would not be shocked at all if they end Washington's run because, like you said, Washington has been playing with fire now for 2 months.
Yeah. And again, I would question whether Washington's defense can really slow down Texas's offense. I mean, just go back to even the Arizona game with Noah Fafita, who was a completely different team. They scored 24 against Washington. That was when Washington looked like a juggernaut. Obviously, Oregon put up 36. Stanford put up 33. USC put up 42. Utah's offense, which was not good, put up 28. We know what happened in the Apple Cup. It was a very tight, low-scoring game on both ends. But again, they gave up 31 last time to Oregon. The Texas team total over here is probably sitting at 33, I think, just based off the raw numbers, somewhere in that range, with a total of 64 in this game.
Yeah.
I would be surprised to see this be defensive. That total to me felt short in general.
Well, yeah, I had Texas team total over, as you know, in the Big 12 championship game. It doesn't get much easier than that. That baby cash in the first half. Now, we need to offer a disclaimer there. Washington's defense is not as bad as Oklahoma State's defense. Very few defenses in the country
Right.
are as bad as Oklahoma State's defense. So it's not going to be that easy for Texas. But yeah, this is a Texas team that put up, 35 in the first half last Saturday, and they're going to put up a big number for sure against Washington. No doubt about it.
Well, we got 3 weeks before those games kick off. Make sure you guys keep it here on Wager Talk and Wager Talk TV throughout the entirety of bowl season for all of the games. I mean, it's going to be a great bowl season for us here at Wager Talk, and making sure that you guys in the Hustle Show have all the information you need to bet on bowl season. So make sure you guys keep it locked here. We guys got you squared away with our props for Monday Night Football. Make sure you guys keep it locked here. Hit that like and subscribe button over on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Full edition of the Hustle Show every Thursday night at 7 o'clock. At Brian Power _wins, at Brian Power WT over on Instagram. And again, he is WT.buzz/BP. I'm over at sportsmemo.sm.buzz/MZ. Get all of our plays there. Appreciate you guys joining us. Good luck with your tickets tonight. Tune into the full show Thursday. Go cash some tickets, make some money. Appreciate you joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow.